So hopefully that's as challenging as our live demos get today. The topic today is really fully exploiting the cloud and the potential of the cloud with business process management. And one of, and I may have told a number of you this at the various times at the table and over wine, but one of my favorite quotes about the cloud was from a Gartner analyst in the UK, and I always make sure I attribute this quote because I'd love to have made it up myself, is that the cloud is probably really misnamed in that it really probably should have been called fog. Because it's one of those things that, I mean, I can't think of another term that has become so pervasive so quickly. And if you look at market estimations on how big the market of cloud is, people put it at anywhere between $100 to $150 billion. And yet no one can actually tell you what cloud is. And there are lots of different terms, and whether it's private cloud, which kind of is an oxymoron, I suppose, public cloud, hybrid clouds, community clouds, you know, and then there are all these various XaaSs, you know, is it software as a service, platform as a service, application platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. You've got all of these various things, but the bottom line is the reason why cloud is important and the reason why organizations are looking to do it is that there are some tangible business benefits. And I think one of the misnomers is that, you know, I'm going to use cloud, it'll save me money. Well, that's not exactly the whole truth. And in fact, research bears out the fact that that's not the #1 reason why people move to the cloud. But it is true that it shifts the expenditure from capital expenditure to operational expenditure. And there are a number of other things that it allows you to do in a way that if you had your own infrastructure and you were selling software or deploying software in a conventional sense would be much more difficult to do in terms of providing a truly global footprint, reducing your cost of ownership, and having an elastic capacity what you can tap into. One of the best analogies I heard was think about auto manufacturing in the early 1900s. When Henry Ford was building the Model T, those auto plants actually had their own power stations because at the time electricity was a nascent technology, it was unreliable, and therefore it necessitated putting the generation of electricity on premise. And we're almost moving a century later to a similar kind of thing with compute power, where now through the advent of much better network infrastructure and bandwidth and so forth, and the reliability and the capabilities of that topology, it makes cloud computing possible, and also the various other technologies which have been around for a while, things like virtualization and so forth have been around for a while, but it makes that possible. And one of the things that certainly going to be the focus perhaps on the demonstration that I'm going to give this morning is about time to market. It's the speed with which you can do things. And anything in the internet that's been successful has not really been something, well, we're going to use the internet to do something we do today. Really, the internet is a transformational technology. It's allowing you to do things that, frankly, you couldn't do any other way. So you think of an organization like eBay or Amazon or Google. Those organizations couldn't be as successful without the internet. Obviously, it's a core part of their business, but if you actually look at what they're doing, eBay could not reach as many people through any other mechanism really without the web. So when we look at things like capital to operational expenditure, you look at the fact that cloud isn't necessarily cheaper. It's shifting the focus. It's allowing you to do things like absorb growth. It's providing a consumption-based model. And the key thing about it is that you're paying for what you use when you use it, just like you don't pay the electricity company to build a power station. You are billed for how much you use at the point you use it. And that's very important. From the standpoint of a global reach, and we at Kofax have aligned ourselves with Microsoft Windows Azure as our cloud platform. And I emphasize the term platform. It's not simply a virtualization layer that we can make accessible to people. We really have done a lot, and what you'll see in demonstration and the presentation, just how much we've exploited the capabilities of that platform. But in terms of global reach, Microsoft has 8 data centers dotted around the world that form the nucleus of their Azure platform. And having that ability to reach anywhere in the world through that infrastructure is a key component of being successful in the cloud. Another component is about reduced cost of ownership. You know, the fact that you are not having to install a whole bunch of software and configure servers and run them on premise. Now you're simply tapping into stuff that's running. You don't have to go set up some kind of generator in your backyard. You simply are connected to the grid, you turn on a switch, and you expect and frankly demand electricity to be flowing out of those power outlets in your home. In the same way that you log on to a system and you expect that system to be there and you demand that system be there in order for you to do business. And the fact that you're not having to worry about, and again, it gets down to, now we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty about things like backups, things like upgrading the software, things like errors resulting from malinstallation of that software. You're not having to worry about that. And the key component of obviously having a cloud-based solution is having a 100% browser-based environment so that you can go anywhere, from anywhere, do anything. And then another piece is the elastic capacity. As an organization, particularly if you're an organization that's growing, and one hopes we all represent organizations that are, but when you buy software, very often you have to go provision the equipment that software is going to run on. And therefore, you're going to amortize that cost over a number of years. So the first question is, do I have enough hardware today to meet my demands 3 years from now? The analogy I give here is someone saying, you know, at your company, okay, we're going to issue with a new laptop. Okay, how big a hard disk do you want? Okay, bear in mind, you're not going to get a new one for 3 years. What do you do? Give me the biggest one that I can fit in that box, which is more expensive. But ultimately, that's what people do. What you want to be able to do is to say, well, how much do I need right now? And then the system will just automatically add additional storage. Now, laptops haven't quite got there. There are online storage capabilities in the cloud that allow you to do that. And certainly from the standpoint of compute power, the compute resources you need will change over time, either in response to growth, or in response to unexpected events. If I'm an insurance company and there is a natural disaster that causes a massive influx in claims, or maybe one of my competitors goes out of business and I start to get all their customers, that's unpredictable. There may be certain predictable changes. So if I'm in the tax arena and come tax season, as we are right now, I'm sure HR Block are busier now than they are probably at any other point in the year. Having the ability to scale and expand to meet that capacity, but then to scale back when you don't, is a critical component. And then lastly, and research bears this out, the number one reason why people move to the cloud is I want to be able to get to market extremely quickly. Now, if someone from the audience came up to me and said, you know, I absolutely must buy your software, it would make my EVP of Field Ops very happy. And even if you literally had the cash and gave me a suitcase and I took it back with me to Irvine, how long would it be until that software is installed in your data center? You know, even if you're probably looking even a few weeks, you're doing pretty well in terms of you've got to provision the hardware, you've got the IT guys to sign off on it, make sure to run some tests, make sure the software's been installed correctly, provision the IP addresses, do things on the firewall, a whole bunch of things. So you're looking at, you know, a number of weeks before that system is available and ready to be used. Well, the cloud changes that. And certainly we at Kofax, we're very cognizant of the fact that there's no point of having something in the cloud if you can't deliver it very quickly. So I'm actually going to provision a system. This is where we get into NASCAR territory. So I should really put on my crash helmet, I suppose, and my NOMEX driving suit. But I'm going to provision a system live. So I'm going to literally provision the system. It will take, well, I've got technically about 22 minutes. It should take a lot less than that. And in fact, I will actually do a demo on that system after I've provisioned it. So the key thing is having the ability to provision that system almost instantly in response to demand. And in fact, I'm actually going to provision two systems. So when we provision a tenant within our data, but within our cloud infrastructure, it creates two parallel systems, a development system and a production system. And then I will receive an email telling me that the system's been provisioned and then gives me the logon credentials and so forth. Now, just to prove that I'm not actually, you know, I don't have smoke and mirrors and there's a guy sitting under this curtain busily typing away, I'm actually going to ask one of you for the name of that system and also a password so that that gets put in the system. So we're going to move on to I'm just going to bring up the browser here. So I'm just going to shut down the screen. Here we go. Right. Let me just resize the screen here. Okay, so I'm going to log in. And what I'm logging into right now is our tenant management system. So this is not something that a customer would do, but this is something that our operations people would do in response to a customer providing us with an order. I'm going to log in. And you can see this is a development cloud platform. So this, and by the way, everything I'm going to show you is production software. This is not something that's coming out. This is something that was actually released, generally available in November. So I'm going to go create a new tenant. So Bruce, if perhaps you could give me a name for that system. And basically what that name will be the first part of the URL. So it will be whatever Bruce gives me dot a whole bunch of stuff .kofax.com. Okay, bpmNEXT. Hang on, let me just go back because I have a sneaking suspicion I already used that when I was testing. So let me just check because I don't. Actually, no, I don't think I did. No, I didn't. Okay. Okay, so bpmNEXT. Next. Okay, there's a bunch of other information, and my apologies, you can't see all the screen here. So I'm just going to put in some random data. We don't want to necessarily take more time than is absolutely necessary. And I'm going to put in a license key, because the license key is important because obviously that determines how many users a particular customer has. And I'll ask Bruce again, could you give me a password? Silver. Okay, let's use silver. Actually, I just realized I don't actually silver. No, silver does qualify. You have to have a minimum number of characters, and I think we're okay on that front. Okay, so I'm going to just put in a contact number, which we don't need, and an email ID that we absolutely do need because it's going to email me to tell me it's done. So there's my email address, and oops, I'm not in the Yemen. I'm actually in the United States. And that's basically all I need to do to provision a system. So I'm going to hit save. Now that's going to do some wonderful things under the covers. So let me talk about what it's actually doing under the covers while we're waiting for the system to actually provision itself. So if I go to my email, we can see, in fact, there is the email. And if you look down the bottom here, you can see, oops, if you can read it, is the password is silver. So we're going to go into the development environment now. So I'm going to click on that. Development environment, and this is where we design our infrastructure. So here is the bpmNEXT system, and for those of you who've got really good eyesight, you can see it says bpmNEXT.demodevbpm.kofax.com. And what this is doing now is bringing up, and you'll see the little silver light thing here. I'm running everything on a Mac. We're browser neutral, so we can run in any environment. And in fact, from a runtime environment, so if I'm actually processing work, I can access that on a smartphone. We're using HTML5. We heard yesterday how HTML5 is becoming very much the mechanism for delivering content out to mobile devices. So we could do that on an iPhone, Android, Windows Phone, tablets, PCs, or in this case, I'm using a Mac. So let's log on to the system now. And we'll use our password silver. And we'll see a whole bunch of options available to us in terms of providing us the ability to go and design a business process. And I'm just keeping an eye on time here. So to wrap this up is just to kind of show you the process designer. I can show you how we just lay out a very quick business process. I don't think we have time to actually run that process, but I'm happy to show that to you at lunch if that's of interest to you. So I can open up the process design environment. And laying out a business process again using bpmn, I can just simply drag, drag, drag. And this is a completely brand new system. So there's absolutely nothing on here that you wouldn't get when you literally buy the system. There's no templates installed. There's nothing else on there. We have in there activities. The activities will range from a whole slew of different out-of-the-box capability, so I can run some C# code, VB.NET. I can integrate directly to Dynamics CRM, so if I want an activity, for example, in a process, to write an artifact into Dynamics CRM such that I want the CRM system to know that this particular step has been carried out or this process is completed. I can create elements within SharePoint, so I can go create a case folder for all the documents to be put in. And again, all of this is available directly from within the system. So there are integration points that can be configured within the system. So if I go back to the screen that you saw just a second ago, I can go to the integration screen and I can set up. Now, obviously, these things are completely empty because we haven't actually created any, but I can create references to web services. So I can define what the WSDL is. It will ask me, okay, what classes, methods are, parameters, and so forth, and then I can integrate directly with a web service. Close that down. I can do the same thing with SharePoint, with database CRM, Dynamics CRM, database connections, and a wide variety of other integration mechanisms. Also, from the standpoint from a Kofax perspective, this is also fully integrated with our capture technology. So when we create capture documents, we can actually map the information extracted directly to the information that's contained within the process, such that there is a seamless transition of information from the capture at the point of origination, whether that's a capture from a centralized capture facility or even someone capturing an image on a mobile phone, and we have a mobile capture to do that. So mindful of the very short time we have available, let me just come out of here and go back to PowerPoint. So to summarize, not all clouds are created equal. You know, simply saying you run in the cloud is a nice thing to be able to say, but the devil's in the details. You know, using cloud doesn't necessarily mean less money. It can do, but it's something that is important to consider when you are looking at cloud is that really saving me money, or is it changing the way I do business? TotalAgility, from our standpoint, is designed specifically for the cloud. What I've shown you today is our TotalAgility software, BPM and case management in the cloud. If I would have done exactly the same demo, minus the provisioning bit, using our on-premise software, it's exactly the same. It's not a cut-down version, it's not a different version, it's the same underlying source code. It's a true multi-tenanted architecture, and it's about delivering the same functionality regardless of the deployment mechanism. So you pick how you want to deploy, not based on the functionality, but of your individual needs. And with that, I'd like to kind of bring it to a close and open it up for any questions you may have.